the important thing.
Yeah. Oh, could you get the wiki prologue before we do this for real?
Wiki
Just go,
prologue.
just go to the page on wiki and look at the prologue because Zoom whiteboards have turned into utter garbage. So
Hmm.
I,
Whoa, what the fuck
I
just happened?
the last two times I tried to put the prologue up, there was some like ridiculous complication.
Ooh, did my camera just turn off and back on?
Yes.
The fuck is going
Well, if
on?
that keeps us turn it off. I know what you look like.
All right. This is not a computer I usually use. I usually use this computer to sequence synthesizers, and it's not
Mm,
like high powered or anything.
right, right.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Then let do it, I guess. I ended up
All right.
watching a little bit of Doctor Strange last night too. I had to watch like 30 minutes. I mean, I could do this podcast without watching it, you know?
It's been a while for me. I think it's been a good 10 years. So I had to,
It's
but it's
probably
like
been
it's one of
more than
those
that.
where when I watch it, I remember everything that happens as it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, it's kind of that sort of thing. So, well, finish it. I want to take notes or whatever, which I might not
It's
even look at. That happens
it's
sometimes.
it's not like 2001 where like three things happen the entire
Yeah.
movie.
The two-hander podcasts, I definitely look at my notes, but when there's three or more, sometimes I never even look at them. But I just think it's still
Yeah.
worth taking them just so I know I'm watching it and not falling asleep too hard.
Uh, not not divin. I've not dived super hard onto trivia for that yet or anything like that. I've
Well, you
started.
don't
I'm
have
like the
to for
first
that.
20 minutes in.
I
Well,
think I just have plenty of crap on that movie just in my head anyway. It's like I don't have to look up trivia.
I didn't I think I knew this, but I had forgotten that it's like a Starship Troopers where he based it on something that he basically did not like and was going to like
Yeah,
destroy the book it
if
was
you
based
if you want to see the movie it was supposed to be, watch Failsafe, which is a
on.
good movie but
Interesting.
not a great movie. Henry Fonda
Interesting.
as the president.
It's like lots of people defend Heinlein's Starship Troopers original book where people are like, well, it's not the same kind of good the movie is, but it's still really good. I'm like,
I
well,
guess The Shining is one of those. Another Kubrick, right? Where
yeah.
I'm on
Shining
team
would be a
movie,
priority.
fully on team movie. Whenever Stephen King makes the argument for the book actually being better, I'm like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, I think it's like I have just a philosophical difference to Stephen King on that, where, I
Yeah.
think that he really,
He's like, it
I
needs
don't
to be
know.
spelled out, and everyone needs to know exactly what's going on, and they have to like the guy. It's like, no, that you
Well,
don't.
I mean, I guess the thing is that Stephen King believes that evil is real and can exist. And the movie, I think Kubrick does not believe evil is real.
Mm.
And I also do not believe evil is real. I think evil is just something that shitty people get desperate and do evil things, but I don't
Mm.
think that evil is like a force.
Right.
And so don't get me wrong. I love sometimes the villain of something being like, mustache twirling, but
Oh
that
yeah.
doesn't mean that I take it seriously. It's like more like I'm laughing at that.
Right. Okay, zone time. Give it
All right.
5 and I'll start the thing. Welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we jump into all of the dollhouses of the Twilight Zone and beyond. This is Matt here, coming back for the 12th time is Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi, I'm Tiny Mark,
If
live
anyone's
from the dollhouse.
if anyone's actually out there doing stats, you don't double check that number. That just pulled that out of my rear.
Well,
That
you
seems
you
about
could have
right, though.
fooled you actually could have fooled me and you didn't have to say that, but now
That's
I'm doubting you.
that sounds about right, though. Yeah.
Not impossible.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Anyway,
it's not a miniature number.
it's not a miniature episode considering that it's twice as long as it deserves to be.
Oh, okay. There's the early hot take. I
um,
guess I'll jump straight into trivia because I had to write like a book, and you could probably take a nap while I do this.
I know some of the things you're going to say and that's more interesting than the episode, but go ahead.
Okay. Original air date was February 21st, 1963. The script is by Charles Beaumont. Walter Grauman directed. He helmed six exploitation-ish sounding movies in the 60s, including Lady in a Cage, A Rage to Live, and Ideal in Danger. While he was also busy on the television circuit, this is his only Twilight Zone. This episode was left out of the Twilight Zone's syndication package as it was the target of a copyright infringement lawsuit due to an earlier spec script with a similar concept. It finally returned to television in 1984 with the dollhouse scenes colorized in an attempt to show off the colorization process. Robert Duvall played Charlie
Process.
Parks.
Process.
Sure, process. Robert Duvall played Charlie Parks. He'd already made a splash as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird and went on to be in everything. While he received an Oscar for 1983's Tender Mercies, he was only nominated for The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and The Apostle. His most recent nom was for 2014's The Judge, making him the oldest man to receive that honor at 84 years of age. Pert Kelton played Miss Parks. She appeared in 1930s comedies in the 30s. I wrote the 30s twice. Okay. Moved over to radio in New York City in the 40s and was the original Alice Cramden in the original Honeymooners sketches. I didn't write this well. Okay. She was unfortunately
Mhm.
blacklisted and replaced by Audrey Meadows in the series, with this episode being one of her few times on film after getting blacklisted. So, uh, we'll give a prop to
Mm.
Rod for bringing her in, I guess, or somebody
Wow.
else. This is
Yeah, and
clearly when Rod's not on set.
she was great, even though obviously the character was more evidence that Rod Serling has a real axe to grind with overbearing mothers. But go ahead.
Barbara Barry was Myra. She would later receive a supporting Oscar nom for the 1979 film Breaking Away and an Emmy nom for the series Breaking Away. But TV Land Diazens likely know her best as Barney Miller's wife on that series. William Wyndon was Dr. Wallman. We've already seen him in The Zone and Five Characters in Search of an Exit, and he also appeared in To Kill a Mockingbird along with Duvall. Of course, what catches my attention are his 4 episodes of Mission Impossible and as the doomed Commodore Matt Decker on Star Trek's The Doomsday Machine. The museum guard was played by John McLiam. While working in both television and film, the credits that stick out are movies like My Fair Lady, The Iceman Cometh, and First Blood. Park's office manager is played by Barney Phillips. We've seen him in The Zone before, and Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? He's also known for his role as Sergeant Ed Jacobs on the 1950s rendition of Dragnet. Your buddy was Lenny Weinrib. You may not recognize his face, but you might recognize his voice. He voiced or got into a suit for HR Stuff, Scrappy Doo, and McDonaldland's Grimace. So Grimace is in this episode. How exciting is that?
Wow. That's very exciting. I'm sure someone even listening to this podcast probably has a dollhouse with a grimace in it.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't in the dollhouse. He was in the apartment, but that's like
Okay.
in a dollhouse of its own, I guess.
Maybe he'll be in a dollhouse later if this goes on long enough.
The folks in the dollhouse were played by Claire Griswold, Nina Roman, and Richard Angarola. Their names are not clickable on Wiki, and this trivia is already long enough, so that's all you're getting. That's
All
why I'll
right.
just mention
I
Sally
mean,
Kellerman has a bit part, and if you don't know who that is, you should look her up.
were they characters? I guess we should get into something else before we talk about that. Were they characters?
We'll get into that. Why don't we get into
Okay.
the prologue first, though, which is what you
All
do.
right. What I do is pull up the browser where I have the prologue saved. All right, should I do this like a tiny person?
I think
To
you've
the
done that before.
average to the average person, a museum is a place of knowledge, a place of beauty and truth and wonder. Some people come to study, others to contemplate, others to look for the sheer joy of looking. Charlie Parks has his own reasons. He comes to the museum to get away from the world. It isn't really the 60-cent cafeteria meal that has drawn him here every day. It's the fact that in these strange, cool halls, he can be alone for a little while, really and truly alone. Anyway, that's how it was before he got lost and wandered into the Twilight Zone.
As one does. Um, Yeah, I'm sensing you have some resistance to this episode, and yeah, I said it off mic, but I'll say it on mic. I
This
had like three people like unrequest this episode.
this is oh, it's frustrating because I would say that the only other we went into this knowing what the deal was. These episodes are twice as long this season. The first one you gave me, the 30 Fathom Grave, was probably the last one where I was really felt like it didn't deserve to be this length. And then there were a few very good episodes that did feel like they deserved to be this length. And then this, which
Oops.
not only is overly long for what it is, but also is derivative of I don't know, five or six other Twilight Zone episodes
Yeah,
that were better than
yeah,
this.
I was also thinking I had you on for Young Man's Fancy, which I guess is kind of
Uh-huh.
a
Uh-huh.
similar vibe. But here's a big difference. And that guy was he was on the verge of being likable. It seemed like when he was outside of his mother's house, maybe he was like okay, whereas Charlie Parks is completely unlikable. Like there's nothing
He's
likable about this guy, which
the
is why you get a really good actor to play him, I guess. But
that's the thing, is that he is a completely unlikable character, but this is obviously like an incredible actor who is doing a better job than many leads get in the Twilight Zone. Also, the whole thing where he gets psychiatric help that seems genuinely helpful and progressive is itself interesting, because it feel like the guy telling the family, we don't use the word normal, we're just trying to do the best we can, is like feels very ahead of its time. So even though he
yeah,
was just pretending to be better, and he's not, so it didn't work. But
actually, it's kind
uh
of interesting because our friends over at the Mission Log Genealogy podcast bring up in 50s television how there's this they have an article basically on like what how you be a man like in the 50s, and there's like four tenets of it, like not showing
mhm,
weakness and things like that, and just how television kind of like would shorthand this like kind of toxic masculinity in the 50s, like not it wouldn't even
mhm.
focus on just like no, of course this guy would never get help, he's a man.
As I understand it, there was kind of a movement soon after this by Scientology to bury psychiatry, and that actually was something we saw a little bit on our Prisoner podcast, where there's a little bit of Scientology adjacent anti-psychology stuff in one of those episodes that I can't remember the name of. But if you see it, because it's the whole thing where number six is hooked up to a machine.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
there's anti-psychologist. But yeah, this one does
well,
seem like he gets well, he kind of get. I mean, it doesn't work, does it?
no, it doesn't work. But I mean, you
They
just
get an
write
A
the
for effort.
character,
A for
you write the
effort.
character how you want to write the character, and clearly this was something where they wanted to write the character so that he gets what he wants rather than what he needs. And did you get anything on your trivia research about how apparently Charles Beaumont may have had this ghost written, like his contribution to this?
Well, he was, I think, in the later seasons, basically falling apart as a person. So
Yes.
this could be the point where he's not actually writing these anymore,
So there is some speculation that maybe some rando wrote some of this.
just trying to get some
Um,
cash in his pocket, I guess. I don't know.
but but there's
I mean, the producers
definitely,
might be helping him out on that. I don't know. I do know there's a lot of weirdness with him, especially about this time, but I have forgotten the details.
yeah, but we it doesn't just, it's not just Young Man's Fancy, but also the what is it, the 35 millimeter shrine, is that right? You
That
know
with the
Todd,
lady
what,
who goes in the back into the movies in
yes,
the end. Yeah,
lady goes in the movies at the end.
mini
Yeah,
Sunset Boulevard. Yeah.
somebody goes into the thing at the end. This is one of those. I put
Yes.
in my notes, I think halfway through my notes was like, well, he's either going to go in, he's going into the dollhouse. And then one of my last sentences I wrote is, the only question is he frozen in place? Is he happy? Or is he screaming in terror?
You choose option three, don't you?
It was, I mean, that would have kind of been more fun, but good. He was happy. Great. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think anything about his life is healthy except for it. Well, I guess marching to the beat of your, I can't be too critical of marching to the beat of your own drummer, but it's more like um
Well, I guess we'll
le-
just throw it out. This guy is like the ultimate incel in a piece of media.
That's not true though, because an incel is somebody who is angry that they are not having sex. That stands
Yeah, I
for
guess this guy's
involuntary
more
incel. This is a volcel, voluntarily celibate, which is
okay.
a
That's
more
different.
decent, which is a more decent human being, period. If you're
Yeah, this
voluntarily
guy's not going
anything,
to
you're
get
a more
aggro
decent
on the
human
internet.
being.
I guess this guy's not going to get aggro on the internet or anything. Or will he? Maybe you have this demeanor when you talk to people in a room and then you get on the comment board and write insanity.
Yeah, because he's bitter from having to live by other people's code or whatever it is. Even though the part of why this episode isn't great and doesn't work very well is because everybody around him seems genuinely nice, except for his mother is obviously overbearing, but not like the worst overbearing mother we've seen.
She
Not
kind of doesn't notice it, right?
clearly.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
the road to hell paved with good intentions. Again, you don't think it's not like she's like, you horrible mess of a son. She loves her son. She's just a little too much.
And also, that might be what somebody like it might be that she's too much because she's so used to having to kind of pull her son out, just pull him out into the world a little bit because but it's like I sort of expected maybe Bud would be a jerk or something, or his boss would be a jerk, but no, people are mostly nice in this episode, so it's kind of I guess it's not
But they
fun
still
when
do
you
gnarly stuff like, Barney Phillips has fires him, which well, none, just on the face. That's
yeah.
that's not, just because he doesn't fit in, which you get, but at the same time, it's like, oh, is that nice? I don't know. I guess he said it's been 4 years, which
He
it,
was nice
it-
enough to give him an honest reason why he was firing him. He was
yeah.
nice enough to say, I was going to use your lateness as an excuse, but I didn't. Um, not nice would be like to just he probably would have already fired him if he wasn't nice because he would have just found an excuse. Because the thing is, we've all seen that happen
Yeah.
a lot.
I mean, he comes home with the like you have a new job every other week energy, right? But he says he's been there
Yeah.
4 years. It's not like he hasn't been holding down some semblance of a social life. I mean, just in that he's
He's
working. He's not socializing with people at work,
he's
but well,
he's not a Mr. Beavis.
Mr.
But
Beavis is just eccentric, right? Who's probably fun
yeah.
if you talk to him a bit, although he might talk about some esoteric topic that you have no interest in, but that he
He's
might
he's
hit an esoteric topic you love. You don't know Mr. Beavis, where Mr. Parks just doesn't want to talk to you.
yeah. It's like Mr. It's not like what was Carol Burnett's character's name? Agnes, wherever Carol Burnett
Oh yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't
It's
remember.
like
She's Carol
there's
Burnett.
this
Burnett, that's fine.
there's this shorthand with some people in the Twilight Zone where they are friends with kids. I think it's like if someone's friends with all the neighborhood kids, that's shorthand for they're a cool person with a good heart and they deserve better than whatever some guardian angel wants to give them, I guess. This guy is just well, this is the issue here is that what excites him is a tiny woman who isn't talking to him. That to me is the primary issue. What makes this guy kind of a schmuck
Yeah.
is that he wants to be with someone who is tiny. So it's like technically he could take the lady out of the dollhouse and smash her if he gets bored or angry. That is a problem. It's like you could say, oh well, he just is a kind person, and he no, dude. There's something there where if if you want a tiny, if you specifically want like a tiny, 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 tiny person, not talking about like a little person, that's cool. You guys are fine. If you're into dating a very short or dwarf or anything like that, that's totally cool. They can defend themselves. A tiny person you can hold in your hand cannot defend themselves. And also,
A
but
miniature person, perhaps, is the
the
word you
main
want to use.
issue, yeah, miniature person. That's a good point. But the main issue is to me is just that this person, the tiny person, doesn't communicate. Or it just went back to tiny. The miniature person does not communicate with him. He doesn't know her. She doesn't know him. Like it's
Oh,
almost
he
like an
knows her. He's
arranged.
been watching.
It's an arranged marriage. You don't know someone when you've been watching them.
No,
Hey,
no,
listeners,
I'm
are you listening to this podcast? You don't know us. Parasocial relationships are not real. You could be really cool. I don't know you, and you don't know me. But that's a little.
we
That's
know a
this
few
almost
people
like
listening.
this is okay.
We
If
play
I
with
do
bands
know
with
you,
some people
then
listening.
you're cool. I I probably think you're really cool if you're listening to this. I'm assuming.
Hey, a minute
Unless
ago,
you're a random person who I am not friends with, who's decided to hate listen to this podcast, in which case, haha, you're listening to this podcast anyway.
a few minutes ago, did you mean to say Bemis or Beavis, or did I mishear
I
you?
meant to say Beavis, Bemis. I was going to use Bemis as an example of
Because
that
that's
guy
what came
was
up to my mind, right? I was
similar
thinking of him.
to this, but that story kind of worked better because everyone he interacted with was terrible.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Even though
But
that was kind of a bang you over the head with it type of thing.
but
It was
also he's like you feel like a little more sorry for him. I for whatever reason. I maybe it's just the maybe it is just the Burgess Meredith versus Robert Duvall style of acting that does it, you know?
well, I felt
Because I'm
like maybe
sitting here
Burgess
thinking like
Meredith was more parodying, and where I think Robert Duvall is trying to make this a real person
yeah, I guess
who
he's method at acting it a little. I'm not saying he's using the method,
I
but that's just like where you come across more here. Like he's doing more naturalistic, I guess, where yeah, Burgess Meredith is doing a caricature. And hey, we're gonna see spoiler, we're gonna see him again next week. So we'll see what he does
no,
in that one, which I haven't watched
I'm
yet.
I'm not going to come down against Burgess Meredith, but I think this is like to me a more compelling performance.
Okay,
It's not.
Burgess Meredith, of course he's a legend, but he's like, fun. You get the impression of fun-loving middle-aged romper around Hollywood and Burbank. That's kind
Yeah,
of the
what'd you
vibe you get
say
from
he was
him.
a stick man? Was that it?
Yeah, Hollywood's greatest stick man. That's right.
Hollywood's greatest stick man. Hey, baby, it's Hollywood's greatest stick man.
Right, right.
I bet that
Which
was
was funny when that we had that Sunset Boulevard connection or whatever it was. No, it was on The Great Dictator where he took over
right,
for Chaplin's ex.
right.
It was
But
just funny that we was talking like we were like, what was Chaplin like? And then I mentioned him, and eventually he just pops up instantly. So where Duvall is
yeah,
like serious actor, right? Which gets him like Oscars and Emmys, of course. So
yeah. The problem is there's just too much in this episode where it's people just having a conversation that doesn't go anywhere, which is just makes it feel. I I mean, how would I make this fill the time up better? Probably just add more plot points. There's more plot points still in this than there would be in a seasons 1 through 3 episode, but it still doesn't feel like enough.
I feel like season four really, even more so than some previous season, maybe because the length does have more actor showcases. Like He's Alive definitely tried to get to its 50-minute length with a really good Dennis Hopper performance. And this one's
Mhm.
trying to do it with a really good Robert Duvall performance. Like it's a little
Yeah,
more of like a actor show. And weirdly, I mean, it's
yeah,
like we're starting to see a little bit of new Hollywood because with those performances, because those guys are going to become major stars of the new Hollywood scene. So the
yeah.
tone is of the Twilight Zone itself changes a little bit with that.
That is very interesting. We also you get Jack Klugman doing like another banger performance
Oh yeah,
2
yeah,
weeks
he's great.
ago.
I wouldn't call that one as much of a like he's definitely a more like in the pocket TV performer, you know?
Yeah, but he gets a lot of time to scream at people in that episode,
You
which is
just like
fun.
screaming. You like guys screaming
Of
at
course
people,
I
that's
like
all.
screaming. Of course I like, and then last week with all the witch stuff.
Right, which I actually haven't watched that one yet. But
Oh geez. Oh, that one's great, man. That might be my favorite what do you call it? Country
season
one.
four, oh, country one,
Might be my
exploitation.
favorite might be my favorite exploitation episode of this entire series.
Oh,
So
okay, well,
yeah, look forward to that.
yeah. So I don't always do these in
And
order. So
look backward to that, listeners of
yes,
this podcast. But
and
yeah,
me.
that's it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think I was just
And
making the
you.
same joke you made, like in a dumber
Okay.
way. So you can just go on.
All right. I was gonna say, yeah, the problem with the episode, the main problem I have with the episode is that too many conversations that go nowhere, and that the fact that because this guy is in a parasocial relationship with a tiny person, I don't feel I feel like I want what I want for him is what everybody else wants for him, which is probably not what the writers of this episode intended me to want.
But he doesn't want that either, really. I mean, I guess he wants to stare at a dollhouse. So
He wants to be in a dollhouse, which is not. Not healthy, I don't
No.
think,
But
because
everybody else wants him to be a stand-up citizen, which I guess he's not interested in, you know?
I mean the girl he goes on the date with seems great, very understanding, nice. It's like she
Horny.
she doesn't even after he throws her onto the ground. I think I didn't entirely understand what happened. I rewound that three times.
It seemed like he just like flinched and it like accident. I didn't get the impression he was actually trying to hit her. It seemed like he flinched and whiplashed her onto the ground.
I think it was something like she was kind of leaning back into his arms and he just dropped her. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
something along those lines. Yeah, well, that's a
But
flinch in a way.
even that, she was still willing to go and hang out with him again, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, there we go.
So,
She was the most unrealistic character in this. So I'm like,
yeah.
uh, I guess they do say
Well,
we really had to convince her to show up again, but which eventually it immediately goes south because he's already locked the door and escaped.
what's it, one of the other Rod Serling things besides overbearing mothers are bad. He also is like find yourself a nice girl. That's just a basic tenet of the Twilight Zone.
He does exit through the window.
He finds himself a nice tiny girl
I
in
guess he
a
doesn't
inside a
fall out of the
house.
window though, so it's not quite the trope.
No, it's true. Oh,
But
you know
that,
what? Somebody's gonna come out a window next last week.
oh, okay.
I can't do that anymore. Anyway,
Well, I am recording it next week, so yeah, you're not off.
I mean last week, but whatever. Anyway,
Last week, this week. What is time anymore?
last week. What time is enough? That's what it is.
Yeah, there we
Um,
go. Just do my
so
podcast literally. Why not?
mm, yeah. So
I just punched something again. I see. I can get where he might have accidentally dumped her on the ground. I just accidentally punched my iPad and TV again.
there you go. Your
I don't know if that
iPad
was
is
on
like
mic or not, but if anyone was
the
wondering what that
girlfriend
noise was,
your iPad's the girlfriend you don't deserve.
mm.
The other problem I had with the episode is that everything that happened in the dollhouse was boring. Like that whole subplot, it was just kind of a weird mimed drama that didn't go anywhere.
It made me think of like like a 20s silent pot boiler.
I'm comparing the okay, it's probably not fair to compare this to Blue Velvet, but that is
He's
another
watching
movie.
that
No,
in the
no, but
dollhouse.
I'm comparing that to that's a movie about a guy who is basically gets addicted to voyeurism and ends up like stuck inside the proverbial dollhouse there, I guess. You could sort of compare that to this, except for the thing that he's watching is completely insane and interesting and compelling, and the thing that this guy's watching is just like a kind of a barely half-written part of an act of a play.
Is it his imagination and his lack
Eh,
of?
I
I
mean,
did find it interesting that said in 1984 they colorized those scenes because I'm like, well, those are the ones that absolutely should be in black and white, just because of that silent movie vibe. Though I guess it's like, oh, when it's colorized, the color is attracting him, but that's all done later, and people don't like colorization anyway. So
I
well,
read
somebody might.
something that said that apparently if you watch that version of it, the colorization gets better and better for each time you see it. So that might justify it. But
Like in the
yeah, there's
episode or when
nothing
you rewatch the episode.
in the episode. Like each scene, the technique is better and better, almost like they were learning to do it as they were doing it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe
No,
that
it
may be
was a
intentional, it may
test
not be.
slash demo, so
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to say.
Well, I mean that would probably work to make it a little bit more interesting, but no, I don't know. It's just it's boring. I don't know why not have a murder plot or something. It's just you have 45 minutes. Write something interesting to happen inside the dollhouse.
He got
I
an
don't
education in 18th century chamber music,
I mean,
humming
did I
Mozart
though?
sonatas.
I feel like I learned more from a piano in a house, and that piano played itself.
Well, maybe this one does as well. Um, I know what are some real life comparisons of people getting too involved with that sort of thing? Oh, in my notes, probably because I just went
Michael
to Disney
Jackson.
Sea. Yeah, because I just went to Disney Sea, I wrote down Duffy and his friends. Do you know Duffy and Friends?
Is that a rabbit?
Duffy is there is a rabbit. Duffy's a Disney bear, which they tried to market in the States first, and everyone was like, "Who's this?" They market in Japan as Mickey Mouse's bear that Minnie made for him when he take goes out to sea. And then they keep making
Huh.
more characters. Some characters you have to go to a certain park to get them. And but yeah, people put
Hmm.
there is no real story behind Duffy and Friends. So people get weirdly obsessed with them in Japan and create their own stories, which usually are like about as interesting as the one in miniature.
That's I feel like you've told me a lot of characters that were exclusive to Disney in Japan, but it might just be this guy over and
It's
over.
probably
I'm
mostly
looking at
Duffy,
him.
yes.
Yeah.
When
It's
I had
a
to buy Lena Bell because all the girls in Japan want
yeah.
Lena Bell, who is a fox, I think. Ooh,
Well,
she's a fox.
isn't Japan's usually a little bit more at least for kids stuff like on the iconography side of things, like here's this character.
Oh yeah, it's like
It's-
Sanrio. It's like here's this
Yeah.
character, but we're not really telling you anything about the character except like he likes cheese or something, you know?
Yeah, where it was the one Sanrio character that was like the what the fox that does death metal karaoke was they actually made a TV series about her, which is surprising.
Is that Kiromi?
Uh mm,
Probably Kiromi. I think you're thinking of Beautiful Black.
I think it started with an F. Agaretsuko.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know that one. Okay.
Agaretsuko. Original, also known by its original Japanese title, Aggressive Retsuko, which is kind of better actually.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
Why change it when it's not broken?
it's because Americans want a catchy title, I guess. That's our Achilles heel. Anyway, we're talking about anything but this 12th Stone episode. Did like interviewing you about this. What do you
Sure, I'll be the guest. You be the host. That's fine.
what do you what do you think? What do you think it would take to cure this guy? You think he needs a
Hmm.
shock treatment?
That's what I was talking, maybe. That's what I was talking about. Like, it seems like he only wants the dollhouse, right? Which is not functional. He's been in a
Yeah.
psychiatric hospital to deal with it. Didn't work. Um, I mean,
Yeah, because
it worked for 5 minutes, literally, right? He gets home and then
if
instantly goes in his room and escapes.
yeah, because the lady who goes inside of the movie, it's like at least that the movie's real, right? I mean, well, sort of. I mean, she's been an actor before, so
Hmm.
there's some reality in that. So
I mean,
just
could
a
they?
dollhouse is a house. It
How
doesn't even
how
look that interesting.
How valuable is this dollhouse? Can we just burn it down? Can the museum just do the guy a solid and burn the thing down?
I mean, didn't he smash a window at some point?
Well, he smashed the glass around the dollhouse
Ah,
so he could
right,
save the girl. That's how it gets him into the mental hospital in the first place. Because once you're smashing
right.
museum displays, they tend to you know, go. I guess that takes things next
Beat
level,
you to
doesn't it?
death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, that guard
That's
wasn't going
not,
to beat
it's
anyone to
not,
death.
it's not the Louvre. I mean, this is probably like easily an under $200 for that time period
Yeah, when
dollhouse.
Parks is walking by the museum guard for like the whateverth time, like it's clear he's been doing this for a while. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
you gotta have some, at that point, you gotta have some guts to walk by that guy who knows you're about to go stare at this dollhouse all day.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a bunch of fetish people who want to watch videos of being very small and having somebody step on them. Maybe this is sort of adjacent to that.
I mean, just last Saturday, I was on the train with another train guy where I'm just
Yeah.
sitting there reading my book on my iPad, and the guy's standing next to me by the door making all the announcements 5 seconds before they actually come on.
He was like, "Are you reading a train schedule?"
It's like that, but no, even the English parts he like would do beforehand. He's like, "And sorry, I'm doing the accent because this is what it sounds like." But like, we are now approaching, and
Yeah.
and he like I was like, "Wow," he's like, I guess that's good English practice, but it's a similar. I guess that's a real life obsession. Like this guy has learned to the second because he's doing it like literally like 3 seconds before every announcement. Like I guess he knows like where you are on the track when the announcement comes, and
Yeah.
so I was like, well, that is a feat of memorization that he must be on this train. Like, well, I'm on the train every day, but I'm not doing that. I'm
I
not
feel like
obsessing about the train when I'm on it.
I feel like since we have like two train lines here, that maybe if there were like 50 like there are in Japan, that I probably would barely be able to remember any of them. Do you
well,
kind of feel like that?
well, You remember you remember Tekkanosakaki, right? You've been on this train. It's the only
Uh,
it's one train through a valley, so I can rattle off all the stations on the line. I mean, because I ride
okay.
it. It's not like I stare at it. I have the train times somewhat memorized because I need to, but that's
All
practical. That's
right.
not like a weird like I want to know every train time. I certainly
I
don't know
guess
mid-afternoon train times.
what you should do is next time you see that guy, blindfold him, take him captive,
Next
and then
time I
take him
see
to
one of
another.
those, next time I see one
Okay.
of those guys.
Okay. Next time you see one of those guys, kidnap him and take him to like a totally different train line and unblindfold him and be like, do this line. And then see if he can do it. That's the real test. Is like, are you really a train otaku if you don't know all the lines?
Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's too
You
much
can't do
time,
that.
effort, and committing crimes for
You get
something I couldn't
arrested.
care
Yeah.
less about.
You get arrested.
Why'd you do
But
it? To learn this thing I don't care about.
but that my I guess the way that that ties into this episode is this guy doesn't it's not that this guy wants the dollhouse. He just wants to be tiny and he wants to be in a small place where he only interacts with one or two people and he wants to be with somebody who doesn't know him.
Again, Mr. Bemis would go hide in the vault for his lunchtime to be alone, and this guy he's at the museum to be
Yeah.
alone. Although this doesn't work as well. At the beginning, he ends up in that gaggle of gals with the tour group.
And also, Mr. Bemis liked books, and
Well, this guy
books
likes little dolls.
are better than dolls. I'm sorry. Okay, now I've probably triggered
Oh, you
somebody. I'm
you
sorry.
triggered somebody.
I've
Yeah.
triggered someone. Um, books are fundamentally more deep than dolls are.
Books include more information in them than dolls do, or more
Yes.
narrative wrinkles. But that's why I brought up
Yes.
Duffy. You can invent your own narratives, and I bet some people get very creative with them. So now my doll is so much deeper than your book.
I bet they take Duffy onto one of the train lines and then unblindfold him and be like, okay, Duffy, if you're really a train otaku, you have to say all the stops on this line.
There are spots around the park, Disney Sea, that have little podiums, like with a little display, and there's a nice view behind it. And you're supposed to place Duffy or one of Duffy's friends there and take pictures of it, and not of yourself.
Does he have like an NFC and chip inside of him where he activates something?
I don't know. That's
Do you guys have that?
yeah, I think so.
Do you have like
I
the magic bracelets and stuff?
Oh no, no, they don't have that.
Hmm. Well, I after watching the Defunct Land video about the magic bracelets, I just basically hate them now on
Okay.
principle.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I would. Yeah, I mean, I was even annoyed that how much more was you had to do on apps, even at Tokyo, which apparently is nothing compared to the States now.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I went was 10 years ago, and it's probably a million times worse now. But it was a thing where you could there was just an unmanned soda station. You could take your cup that you paid the refill money for, and you just refill it all you wanted to. So that's nice.
Right. No, they had the fast pass stations are physically still there, but they're not. They got tarps on them, or at least they're not usable. So that
Yeah.
sucks. Um, Maybe that's what this guy should do. He should go to Disneyland. He can do that in
I
1963.
I think that Disneyland is a great, like, relatively healthy, if expensive, alternative to going inside of a dollhouse and living inside of a doll. Like Disneyland is land of dioramas,
Hey,
you know?
if it's 63, the ticket to get in is much cheaper because then you buy the ride ticket. So he could probably
Yeah,
manage that.
yeah. I mean, I guess this is sort of one of those things where,
You can't do it now
uh,
because now you get an annual pass and they blacklist half the days. Uh, just
yeah,
just like what's her name? Uh, Bert Kelton.
yeah. The whole thing is just that the idea of theme parks and dark rides probably wasn't so much of a thing in 1963. So maybe
Are we talking about so much because it is like at least a adjacent obsession he's into? It's kind of like he's like obsessed with the dark ride, like staring into a dark house, a dollhouse the whole time.
am I
Or is that too much of
crazy
a
or
stretch? I
yeah, maybe.
mean, I am stretching here, but
Um,
we keep talking about it, so does it? I mean, maybe that's a more of an obsession people can relate with, because
that's
there's not that many people you can't relate so much with. I want to stare endlessly into a dollhouse, you know?
Well, I mean, people can buy dollhouses and then they stare endlessly. I don't even know if people who buy dollhouses really stare endlessly into them.
But
I, I,
but people do. I mean, there are people that do go to the parks like once a week, or if not 5 days a week, if possible. So that's a similar. Of course, some of them are making vlogs and stuff, so I guess that's their job too. But
do you think this would be better if it was about a guy who wanted to be inside of Monster Mansion and then he went on that ride a bunch of times and then he ended up in the marsh with all the monsters at the end?
for me, yeah, I get through all those ride throughs, right? You'd get so much
Yeah.
ride through watching that one. Have you
Well,
seen
and
the ride at the end of the movie Clifford?
no, I've never
Um,
seen that.
I would just look up the ride. I mean, the movie itself is completely insane, but yeah, I'll see if I can find a clip. But yeah, it's his uncle is finally so pissed off at him, he just puts him on a dinosaur ride, and it doesn't stop. It keeps going in circles. It keeps going faster or whatever. And the ride's created for the movie, and it's completely insane. People look that up if you want to see a fun clip from a movie you may not want to watch in full.
I've heard that movie is worth watching because of its like insanity,
It
but
is because it's so insane. Because Martin Short is what he's playing a like 8-year-old for no reason through the entire thing, and Charles Grodin is just the angriest man ever in that movie. So if you want, hey, you know what? Yes, you should watch Clifford. You'll have
Charles
a man yelling at another man who's supposed to be a child. That could be your new favorite. I don't know. So
wasn't Charles Grodin also in like Beethoven where he was angry at a dog?
yeah, that was his early
Was that
90s
just
thing.
his whole thing? Yeah.
That was his, which was a You know what? That's a great typecast.
Maybe he should have been in What
Angry
About Bob?
curmudgeon that screams a lot. I mean, that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean, I think I could see him being angry at Charlie here,
yeah.
probably.
Well, let's throw out some questions on it then. Who in this episode goes into the Twilight Zone?
I think that's another thing I don't like about it is it's obvious that Charlie goes into the Twilight Zone.
Right. So I guess the question is, how much are other people influenced by the Twilight Zone in this episode? Matt, that girlfriend that didn't happen, she got closer to the Twilight Zone than she got too close to the
Well,
Crazy Zone. So it wasn't the Twilight
the
Zone. She
cra
just
that was what I was gonna say is that basically nobody in this episode goes through anything that like plenty millions of people have to go through this with their mentally unwell loved ones all the time, except the security guard who sees the thing at the end, which probably wasn't even necessary, but I guess that was at least kind of a nice touch that it
well, that's
went.
our supernatural touch, because otherwise he is
Yeah,
just nuts, right?
yeah, he's either just nuts or he's yeah. That's I guess that's I the episode was generally so uninteresting that I didn't even really think about whether the supernatural stuff was real or not. I just kind of didn't care. I assumed it probably was.
No, I think the guard seeing it like makes it like in the
That
context of his episode, yes, a supernatural thing occurred and he lives in the dollhouse now.
it was a better choice than not doing it, I think. But
Right.
yeah, it was. I don't think that anybody really was affected that much by the Twilight Zone. If this guy just disappears into the dollhouse, then they're just going to go about their lives and be like, oh, well, poor Charlie. He must have run away to
It
Mexico or
might be
something.
better without him.
I mean, I probably he probably does some amount of chores for his mother, but I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, she takes off his shoes for him.
Oh God, yeah, that made me really uncomfortable.
Oh, just we didn't really talk about the dollhouse effect, the screen effect. That was one that was like probably doesn't work well on Blu-ray. It might have worked better in 63, cathode ray TV. But
Yeah,
I appreciated that they were doing. I thought it was kind of cool with the projection thing. But yeah, I was like, this
it
doesn't
was
actually look quite. Maybe that's why they could colorize it in 1984, right?
it was something, but I didn't think it was really remarkable to even put in my notes anywhere. Didn't
Okay.
really think much about it.
Just I was like, that's the kind of the money shot in terms of I don't talk about as much as I did in like season 1 and 2 where there's like that one effect shot or something because I guess they don't do it as
Hmm.
much. But I was like, that's
Yeah.
kind of like one of those. So I thought it was probably worth a mention.
I
Um,
suppose this season has been kind of light on the effects, really,
well,
compared to
just to
previous ones.
reiterate, that car crashing itself was pretty cool in
Car
Valley of the
crashing
Shadow.
itself, Valley of Shadow. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
that was a good effect.
And there's some disappearing of stuff in that episode too. But
Death Ship had a few good effect shots, didn't it?
yeah, yeah, it was all right. I mean, was that in the Forbidden Planet ship again or something?
Yeah, it was,
I just
but I think they at
I just
least did it.
assume.
Yeah, it was. Um,
I love Death Ship. Don't get me wrong. I was especially because it's called Death Ship.
yeah, talk about titles. I mean, miniature. It's like
Yeah.
you can't look up miniature on the internet without also typing in Twilight Zone. It still might show you toys and not the episode.
Well, yeah, and you also next week's episode is called Printer's Devil. So
Yes, yes,
you got
nice
some good
evil
episodes
titles,
titles.
some
Yeah.
deaths and devils. Um, did Charlie deserve his trip into the Twilight Zone?
I think he deserved to not go to the Twilight Zone. I guess not. Is that the answer? Because it's like it
Because
doesn't.
he
It seems
wanted
like he
to?
got what he wanted. It's like maybe he deserved. He didn't. Right? Because that's
I think he wanted to
this
go in the
is
Twilight Zone, though. That's the
one of
thing.
the rare. I guess it's kind of rare that we have someone who genuinely just wants to go into the Twilight Zone, doesn't want anything else. It's not impossible because we got that Young Man's Fancy last year, which, by the way, I think is a better episode than this. I don't know if you agree, but it's
I
more
know
interesting
people
to
that may
me.
or may not. So yeah.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, it is kind of weird. It's like he wants it so bad. It's like no, he doesn't deserve it because he wants it.
yeah, he deserves to. He deserves to go broke and have to really reassess his priorities, which is not as a Twilight Zone thing. I guess
That's the financial zone, the
if
poverty zone.
suppose okay, I got a question for you. If this Twilight Zone manifestation involved him like going into the dollhouse and it was like a bad thing. Like he was like my thing in my notes where I was like, is he going to be screaming in terror for some reason? Like that, I thought maybe the dolls would all like take their faces off and be demons or something, or he'd go to hell or something. Would he deserve that?
Well,
Do you
um,
think?
I don't know. You just saying that though just made me think, oh yeah, the good version of this is Sherlock Jr., isn't it?
Yeah,
Because now
yeah,
you have a
yeah.
likable lead. Again, not
Uh-huh.
talking about Robert Duvall's acting, just the character is much more likable in Sherlock Jr. He goes into the dollhouse slash movie and has weird adventures, you know?
Yeah, that's also I don't know. You talk about
Because he is
effects. I
obsessing with the
mean,
movie and stuff, right? And he's like, when he gets a girl in, if you remember, Buster Keaton's like watching the romantic movie to try and figure out what to do, because clearly he has just as much experience as Charlie Parks on that with Harriet on that park
yeah.
bench.
I was for some reason for just a second I was thinking, was there another Dollhouse episode of The Twilight Zone? And I cannot remember. Does that sound at all possible or plausible?
There's plenty of dolls.
Yeah. Well, I guess
As far
there's
as
the
are the
after
dolls in the
hours
house.
where it's like mannequins,
Right, right.
but
So
then the mannequins are the characters, and that's part of why I think it's a much better episode than this.
I don't think we get a um specific dollhouse. I mean, I'm thinking of the lateness of the hour. That if you
Hmm.
well, that drama is a whole nother fast of the Twilight Zone, so that couldn't be happening in Charlie Park's Dollhouse because that would be a different
Yeah.
episode happening within another episode. But that had a feeling of be like I remember when he did that episode. I was like, they could be in like a apocalyptic world where they're just like trapped in this house. This is like their refuge, you know? Like nothing in the episode refutes that, which gave it to me a dollhouse feel.
Hmm. Yeah, and I searched, I just Googled Twilight Zone Dollhouse episode, and I'm getting Living Doll, which I think has not
That's a
come up
doll,
yet,
right?
right?
That's not a
As a doll.
yes. Like I said, we
So
definitely get dolls, but I don't know about if they get a house to go with them. Um,
yeah.
let's tripometer it. What do you want to give this one?
Oh, this is actually kind of hard, and I think I'm just gonna give it I'm gonna give it a 2.1, and it's just because you can't really do this story without it being at least kind of trippy. It's kind
Yeah,
of
I
like a
was
begrudging, like I'm angry at giving it that high of a number because it's kind of not trippy, but it has to be.
mine was actually slightly lower and yours at 2 without the point one.
Yeah.
Um, and mostly just because like I said, I don't know if the effect aged well, but it's still kind of a trippy effect with the
Yeah.
dollhouse effect. I mean, at least it's like kind of weird, and I mean, it's not unfun to watch. I just know I'm not looking at a physical 3D thing, you know?
Shrinking is objectively weird. I think
Yes.
shrinking is weird. And also tiny miniature people is weird. Are weird. I don't know how else to put it.
We
I
had the little
guess
people last season, right?
oh yeah, you're right. Maybe that's what I was thinking
Those are
of.
much smaller though. Yeah, they're very
But see
miniature.
that was the weird thing where they had a personality that you didn't see, which worked really well actually.
I mean, you could flip the title of these two episodes probably.
Like I feel like I knew way more about those tiny people than these tiny people, even though we explicitly see these tiny people move around and do things.
See, I was just like, he's not that imaginative. He's just like basically putting on a 1920s pop plot, onto what he's seeing in the dollhouse. Or it's
Uh,
happening, I guess, because he does end up there in the end, and maybe those
yeah,
people just aren't that interesting.
it
I mean,
makes
if
sense.
you
It's sort
if
of
you
like
are going to watch people, you're a lot of time they'll probably just be watching TV, right?
Static. That's another one where Static is basically this guy wants to live in a simpler time and he just psychotically breaks and goes into the simpler time.
Well, this guy
Like
just
that
wants to be alone, right?
well, but that's the thing is that the guy from Static wants to be with this idealized version of people who aren't real. And that's kind of the same thing here, where this guy does not want to deal with real people and their real problems and the problems the things real people have to deal with in real life. And again, like props to this episode for making those people in this episode very real, where the dollhouse people are very not real. And I maybe all that talk that I just spit out is like my own answer, where this episode has already told me that he's actually in a bad place and he
Yeah,
could have been in a good place.
yeah. This is weird because I mean, I kept saying, especially in the earlier seasons, they'd be like, this calm man is about to be pestered by the Twilight Zone, or this rank bastard is gonna get flailed by the Twilight Zone. Where this guy, they don't really, people want to help him, but he isn't that likable, but he's not like actively hostile or anything either. I mean, this is the
Hmm.
guy you would ignore. Maybe that's why you find it boring in a 50-minute episode, because in real life you would hard ignore Charlie Parks. He's the German tourist that Fassbender's character dresses up as in The Killer.
Yeah, you just you might be kind of acquaintances with him, but you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time with him, except and if you did, he probably would
You would
try and
not
push
have fun.
back.
You would,
He would try not to hang out with you. He
yeah.
probably would. Whereas the Static guy was just like an angry, abrasive old man. But also, radio more interesting than dolls. I'm sorry, doll people. Somebody's really mad at me.
You're just not a
There's just
doll man.
I'm not a doll man. I'm maybe still bitter about all the times I talked my parents into buying me Transformers
I was
when I
about to
was a
say,
kid,
what
and they just
what
don't
if
do anything.
what if we make this just a little different and he's now looking into a meticulously made museum quality, museum worthy version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sewer with all the turtles in there, and
The
Splinter
Technodrome.
and Casey Jones. No Technodrome, it's just the
Oh
sewer.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I don't know. I guess you can have Technodrome if you want, but yeah. How long? What if he gets obsessed with staring at that and just thinking about what the turtles do in their sewer layer, not the adventures they have outside of it?
yeah. That see that's
Can you relate to that?
I mean, I think that's terrible, but I understand that some people genuinely would want that. That makes sense, is that some people really just want to what is it? What do you call it? Like cozy games where you're playing video games where you're basically just like folding there's a game where the whole thing is you're just like packing and unpacking clothing. I mean, I know it's called unpacking. I know there's an overarching plot where it's like you're going through different phases of a person's life, but still it's like there's a whole thing where you just want to be in the living room.
Hmm.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, geez, that would just be you're just in the sewer with the Ninja Turtles. It's like pizza again. It's always Domino's. It's always Pizza Hut. You never see a Ninja Turtles order from a good pizza place.
That's because they have to send the money up from a sewer grate, and then the pizza gets handed out sewer grate. A good
Yeah.
pizza place might do that. I don't know.
I figured it was because they were turtles and they just wanted something as
I
greasy as
think it's because
possible.
Domino's paid the money to make it
Yeah.
Domino's in the movie.
Remember when there was that one Nintendo game, if you bought it, you got a coupon for a free personal pan pizza?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got that.
Sorry, I was looking how I was thinking about the few toys I have around here and realized I'd completely lost track of where Kylo Ren and Rey miniature were fighting. I finally spotted them
Ah,
though, but they're hard to see now. Yeah, okay.
I I
That's why
don't.
squirming around in
I'm
my
somewhere
chair.
else. I'm not in my home, but um, yeah, I I'm honestly more interested in having like plushy things than in dolls.
What if you went
It's
to a pet store every day and just was looking at like well, then they try and sell them to cats, I guess. But
th this is what happens if you. I did actually because one of my cousin's kids, I just get him Legos pretty frequently for Christmas presents because hey, it's Legos. You like Legos? You're a
yeah.
kid. You like Legos. And this last year, something kind of happened where I started getting jealous and I started looking at Legos. And now Target has given me a coupon that says we'll give you $10 back if you buy $50 worth of Legos. And
Ooh.
I can't. I
Oh.
cannot buy $50. I cannot do that. I cannot buy $50 worth of Legos. That's too much. It's too many Legos.
I
I
kept
cannot
buying
do that.
I bought Legos for my daughter up until the point where it was like unreasonable because I liked playing with the Legos too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, you
If
liked
I
the new Ghostbusters movie, did you? Ecto One,
I
which
mean,
was hard to build.
if
I
I
got to build
completely
more of that
break
than
down,
normal.
man, that's cool. If I break down and buy $50 worth of Legos, I will kind of hate myself.
Right.
That's
Don't buy
just
the Legos. I
too
still
much
have
information. I don't want
there's
to.
still a TARDIS at my parents' house, a Lego TARDIS. One day I
No
need to,
need.
yeah. Maybe you should just go get it and build a Lego. That's what you should go to my parents' house, get the Lego TARDIS and build that. And then you don't have to pay 50
Okay.
bucks and you got your Legos.
Okay. Sure. And the next time I come to Japan, I'll pack it up and bring it to you.
Apparently it's too big for that, which is why I've never gotten
Whoa.
it.
Wild. No, I
Anyway,
mean, I can take enough. I can take enough luggage.
okay.
Because I
Anyway,
think last time I came out, I brought like three luggages, three suitcases.
right. I guess my main point is if he was obsessing over something else, would that make this more relatable? Maybe because we just talked about really dumb stuff for a good 5 minutes.
Maybe. I guess it's just maybe that's just it, is that that it's a living room. It's a parlor. He just wants to be in a parlor. I mean, sure, it's a more glamorous house than his place where he lives,
Apartment.
but
I mean, I guess they're in a kind of the low rent zone, right?
sure, but also he doesn't come across as a very materialistic person. So
No, he comes
what's the
across as a
deal? I
very
think
boring person. This guy's boring.
he just wants to be with his tiny pianist. He just
I
wants to hold his
I
tiny
almost heard,
pianist.
yeah, that's what I'll say. It's something very different there. Okay.
He just wants to
Um,
hold his tiny pianist.
right. You keep saying it.
I mean, it's
Uh,
not even a tiny dancer. Otherwise, you'd
and you
say
broke up
hold
my
it.
segue too. How could you?
Mm.
I was about to be if you wanted more real dumb stuff, you could. Yeah. See, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
force. I'm gonna shoehorn the segue in. If you
if
want more
you
real
want
dumb
more
stuff, as
segues
mentioned a minute
broken,
ago,
you want more broken segues,
you
like
can check us out on Patreon at Podcastius, where we do this and do this
mm,
early with extra banter, films and filth. Mark and myself and other people talk about really good movies and really bad movies as voted by IMDb users. There is, oh, and Mark and I talk about Podcast 1999. That's the name of the podcast because we're talking about Space 1999.
which is now
I,
even worse than this.
I knew it was a mistake as soon as the P was coming out, but I'd already said the P, so I had to do it that way. There's video game podcast, Luke Loves Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report wrapping up on Tears of the Kingdom about the time of this release, and Game Show with gamers gaming each other. I beat Mark by 1 point. How many points did I? It was
True.
1 point.
I think it was one or two. Yeah,
Yeah,
you did it fair and square.
that was surprising. Okay.
More. I've lost every appearance on there, so now I'm just gonna start trying to make that into to a brand identity and start selling merch.
Well, that's been done on that show before. I mean, not the merch part, but
I
the
know.
brand identity of losing.
No, yeah, Musk had that for a while, and now he wins regularly. So
Oh no.
no, it happened. It's part of life.
Yeah, part of life. As just staring into a dollhouse for infinity.
I bet that nobody who we record podcasts with wants to live in a stupid dollhouse. I'm sorry, doll lovers.
Should I record like a
Uh,
trigger warning for the start of this episode?
You should. Have you ever listened to a podcast where it's like content warning? It's like a sound. You need to do that.
Content warning.
Content warning.
This
Doll people
episode
will be
may
insulted.
trigger doll people. You gotta put some sauce in this. This may trigger doll people. Like you're kind of judging them as you say it.
Yeah, I hope nobody's offended by my doll slander, but whatever. It happens. Yeah, these people do have a stylophone. A stylophone before.
Ooh, that's fun. Okay. These people have a style phone. I just want to say
Stylophone.
everything in a accusatory tone.
Get a stylophone. Because we
Okay,
record
I'll
so many
catch you.
podcasts that our voices are all low now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll catch you in 23
Yeah.
hours then. I need to
Yep.
rattle off for now. I'll hit
I
the
need to go
record.
watch that movie
Goodbye,
and
all of you
finish
doll
watching
people
it.
that just got offended.
Hey, you know what? Go play with dolls. It's fine.